In the last episode, we installed Blender on the computer and we just opened it. And this time we will talk about the first thing you have to master, which is the interface. Just before we actually go to this is kind of a special thing because this is the first time we open Blender, and so we have a specific menu that correspond to this very first time. So let me just help you go through all of these small settings and see what we want to change and what we want to keep as it is. Language, you probably want to keep English, even though a lot of languages are available. I really encourage you to keep English. First thing is that it's a good way to learn terms that you will need to actually know to discuss with your colleagues and everything. But also, if you're searching for help on the internet, you're most likely to find English speakers and English forums or English speaking forums where the answer will be. So it's easier to find the buttons and ask for a question when it's in English. The shortcuts, we obviously want to keep Blender. You can use other ones, but there are so many shortcuts in Blender that I really want to keep this one. The select with option, this is coming from kind of an historical thing with Blender and right click select. It's also the name of its community forum or channel. And so for the longer time, Blender used to select with right click. And 2 years ago or something like that, when we switched to 2.8, then they aligned with the industry standards, going for left to select. And in this case, we will keep left to select because it's kind of useful and easier to switch from software to softwares, even though there are some points that are quite true in the reason of why right click to select makes sense. But anyway, we will just keep left for now. Spacebar, this is what I want to change. Basically, you have to keep in mind that most of the people that are using Blender are actually doing animation, and so most of the tools that we will find in Blender are made for that. And for example, animators need to always check their animation, so they use the spacebar to do play and pose quite a lot. But on our side, we don't use animation that much, or if it happens, it's for a specific part of the process or at the end of the process. But most of the time, we will just use tools to model. And for that, I like to use search with the spacebar because for two reasons. First is some actions I don't even know where they are because I just search for them and it's way quicker than going through menus, or maybe there is no shortcut. So for specific action, it makes sense. Also, the good thing about the search menu, we will discover it later, is that it lets you discover new tools basically, because you can say you can just write the name of an element like object or mesh or empty, light, normals, like anything, and it will show you all of the action available in the context where you are for this specific element. And this you this can be used as well as a way to discover new tools, because then you have all of those action and you can try them one by one and check how this could help you improve your process basically. So I prefer to go with search, and also in this case, play and pose for animation will be replaced by shift plus spacebar, which is not uh, such a big deal. Like from spacebar to shift spacebar, it's not something huge. So I just prefer to use search with spacebar. It was a lot for not a lot, but a lot of time for not a lot of result. But yeah, at least you know why. And theme here, I have no preference. You can go with what you want. I like the Blender Dark because it's vanilla, but there are quite a few theme that you can try by your own. This one is pretty cool. But yeah, let's just keep the Blender Dark for now. Perfect. And now you can say save new settings. Once this quick setup is done, you have the exact window that you will get every time you open Blender. And this is composed of this splash screen, as they call it. And this will be just a quick menu to help you create new files or open recent project that will appear here. But since we just started and we have no project yet, nothing will appear here for now. It also tells you which version of Blender you're using, so this can be useful. But since we don't have anything, let's just click next to it, and here you have the interface. The philosophy behind this interface is that um, everything is separated into regions or panels, as you want to call them. And this is because the main idea behind Blender's interface is that everything should be kept in just one window. It's not like Maya, where when you want to open some editors, you get a lot of windows. And Maya is not the worst, but it's one of them. And in Blender, you can do 90% of the work without having any extra windows. This is not true all the time because you have also, for example, the render view that will appear as another separate window, and also some specific tools or editors, I would say. But most of the time, it will keep this rule of everything happens in one window. And to be able to manage that the best way, the whole interface is based on this separation idea with different regions, which will help you access different tools or different properties of the object or whatever you do in the project. So during this episode, we will talk about the basic layout, so how the panels are organized and how to edit it. We will then figure out the best layout for what we want to do and discover quickly what Blender can offer us as workspaces, as they call them. And yeah, this will be just the first step to discover Blender. So let's go for it. So as I said, the layout of Blender is the way you organize all the panel in it. And each panel corresponds to some aspect of the scene or of your work. Let's just go through them very quickly. The one in the top right is called the outliner, and it will list all the objects in your scene and let you organize your work. The panel just under it is called the property panel, which, as it names lets you imagine, it will let you modify some specific parameters and properties of your object, your scene, your renders, or any other element that you could find in the viewport, which is the main area of the window, and this is where 90% of the magic will happen. Finally, the small one down there is called the timeline, and it's just a visual representation of the time in Blender, and this is used mainly or only when you do animation. So you have to see each panel as a slot that you fill with the actual panel that you want, which means that you can change the function of the panel at any time. Let's say you want two properties panels, then you would go in the outliner to replace it, and you will click in this top left drop down menu, and here you can find all the different panels that you can use. So in this case we want a property one, so let's just click on it, and boom, you have two property panels. So let's just go back to outliner, and as you can see, this drop down menu is everywhere, always top left corner, which is good because then it's redundant. Like you know that it will always be here, and it lets you just reorganize everything as you go. I will not explain what everything is doing here, but we will have time to discover some of them on the way, and you will also be able to just discover them by yourself. Basically, for now, we don't care about animation or scripting, so the two middle ones are not really useful. Here, it's mainly about 2D stuff like the image editor, the UV editor, the compositor, which are different tools for 2D, like for textures or for render. Then you have the texture node editor, same. Shader editor will be for, as it says, creating shaders and procedural shaders, for example. Video sequencer is for video editing, and movie clip editor, yeah, same basically. And data is quite useful. It has the outliner that we already talked about, the properties, the file browser, and preferences. But those two we will see along the way when we need them specifically. So we will mainly use three of them, which are the outliner, the property panel, and the viewport. Those are the ones that will help you and let you model and create your geometry. But knowing that we need those three, let's see how we can rearrange the interface. And the first thing for that will be to actually change the size of the different panels. And the way to do it is just to grab the separation in between. You can see that the cursor is changing, and then you can slide in the direction to make things bigger or smaller, which can be super useful if you want to reorganize, having like, I don't know, multiple viewports or stuff like that, which is quite easy. And also now we know that the timeline will not be useful for now, and we want to optimize space. We want to have the maximum space in each panel that we need, but there is no point of keeping a panel that we don't need. So this one, we could just make it super small, but it's still here. And this will lead to how you delete and add new panels. To do so, you have to go in the corner of one of the panels, like a separation between two panels basically, to click and drag. If you click in one direction, it will create a new panel, but if you go in the other one, it will delete it. Also, before you release to delete, you can see that if you pick the direction that is deleting a panel, you basically can say that one panel is taking over another one. So if instead of releasing the button, the left mouse button here, I go up, then I have the choice of deleting the other panel. But in this case, I just want to get rid of the timeline. So let's just go down here and boom. And that's it. I have my three panels. I can add one by dragging the corner here, but here it's not the case. I just want to delete it. And that's it. So with that, you are able to quickly change the interface that you have and bring the editors that you need. To make things kind of simpler, Blender decided to recently add what they call workspaces, which will basically be different layouts and different way to organize the panels that you can super quickly have a window with all you need for specific actions. And you can find those up there. It's those small tabs, and you can see by toggling between them that they're basically changing the way your interface is organized. But personally, I have some, not a problem with this, but I don't really like this idea because it's super disturbing. As you can see, the object, like it's changing to some other ways to edit it, and I don't really like that. I like to have a full control of what I'm doing, and I also like to think that the interface will have to change, but I like to let it change, like go with the flow. Like I like to let it change based on my needs for the project, because at specific times of the project I will have specific needs, and so to me it makes sense that just everything evolves together, not only the object and the model and the project, but also the interface, because the things I need in the beginning I may not need later on. And my favorite layout is exactly the one you have here. It's outliner, property panel, and a viewport. And with that, you can do most of the things. Also, you can see that if you go for modeling, you basically have those three panels. And even when we will do some more specific actions, these will probably stay there. So you can use the workspaces if you want, but in terms of efficiency, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, what I like to do in my interface, what I do a lot is to press Control Space, and this will maximize the area where my cursor is. So if I go in the property panel, I can maximize it, and just Control Space will toggle like the maximized viewport. As you can see, it's written back to previous here, which will just be like going back to a non-maximized one, but you can just do it with Control Space. And I do that a lot because then I can have a bit messier interface, but just go for the viewport and play inside of the viewport. So yeah, I don't think the workspaces thing makes a lot of sense, but if you feel better using those, it's really your call. And I encourage you to just understand why you want this or that interface, and if it's thanks to workspaces, go for it. Really, it's really your call. Quick conclusion on this episode. It was quite fast and we didn't have much knowledge to get here. It was just a super simple introduction to the interface and the concept of Blender's interface. You just have to understand that everything is based on panels and also on where your cursor will be in the interface. You have some predefined interface done by Blender, but also if you want specific arrangement, then you can just do it by yourself by picking precisely which panel you need, and also changing the dimensions and how things are organized. Finally, you can maximize one part of the interface and work on this specific panel. So again, this was just simple and quick, but I really want to take this course slow so that I don't lose you and we can go along. So in the next episode, we will talk about the navigation in the viewport and how to move around and how to pick the specific view that you need. So see you in the next episode.